These testimonials are representative of my or our experiences, but the exact results and experience will be unique and individual to each person. The information provided herein is not medical advice and is not intended to substitute for the advice of your personal physician or other healthcare providers. Welcome to The Beautiful Bag. This is your host, Leanne Hayden, cancer survivor, and more importantly, ostomy lifer. Each and every week, I'm going to be bringing a special guest or some inspiration for you and a few little stories along the way so that you can learn what life is like for us to be living in an ostomy and why we all think it's a beautiful bag. So listen in and let's get started.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's The Beautiful Bag podcast episode. This week, I am bringing to you Jacqueline, who is an athlete. Guys, actually, she's an ice skater, and if you go to her Facebook or Instagram page, you're going to be like, whoa, what? Some of the moves she's doing. So she's had her total colectomy since 23, but has been in an ileostomy since 2020. All because of Crohn's, but I'm not going to steal her thunder. I am going to let her share her own personal story. So Jacqueline, thank you and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. No, I'm really excited. It's just, just spreading awareness of what we live with and breaking stigmas and really teaching people about how we really have no barriers is really important to me, which was why I started that Instagram page, was just to get the information out there. So I'm really, really excited to be here and kind of share, I call it my journey, as you can relate to. But yeah, actually, I didn't even realize it until this year that it's been half my life with Crohn's. I was diagnosed 15 years ago at 15. So literally half my life has been battling this disease. And I wasn't unaware of kind of what Crohn's disease was because my mom has Crohn's. Lucky for her, she's in spontaneous remission. So
that's good.
Not even on any medication, but my dad had colitis, and him having his cancer battle the year before I was diagnosed definitely wasn't a stranger to the diagnosis once it came about. I think my parents were they were praying for celiac disease. Not that that's much better, necessarily easier, but in a sense, you just avoid some foods and you're okay. Whereas Crohn's, obviously, treating it is a little bit trickier.
Right.
But I think that they knew in the back of their mind, just genetically, like it wasn't going to be anything other than IBD. So my official diagnosis is actually Crohn's colitis. Reason when I was first diagnosed, it was everywhere. But ever since, it's really just been centered to my colon, thankfully. So yeah, just many years of trying to figure out medications that work. I went on a biologic the year after I was diagnosed because the medication stopped working. I became oral steroid resistant, so I don't respond to oral steroids at all, which, would be a lot easier if I did. But just many years of trial and error. I think at this point, I've been on every single Crohn's medication on the market, discluding Rinvoq, since that was just approved like 2 weeks ago for Crohn's. But I'm back on Humira for a second time. So we're at this point literally recycling through. But yeah, it's been quite an experience. I think in the beginning, even though it would be hard to achieve remission, I always did achieve remission after every flare. And my remissions were always asymptomatic. So I never considered myself like that sick kid, or someone with chronic illness. It wasn't part of my identity because I was like, well, when I'm healthy, I feel great. And it really wasn't until 2020 where obviously the country was or the world was turning upside down. I just figured, I'm just stressed out. I'm flaring because everyone's stressed out. This is normal. Soon learned that was not what was happening. I was fully coming out of remission, and it got to the point where I said, if I don't do something surgically, I'm gonna lose my colon for sure. Something's gonna mutate into something that I don't want it to. And so I actually made the decision to disconnect my small intestine from my colon to hopefully save it.
Mhm.
Even though the surgeon was saying, you really only have a 15% chance of this working out the way you want it to, but we can try it. And I was like, all right, 15% is good enough
Something.
for me. We'll
It's
give it.
something.
And really did hang on to the idea of saving my colon for longer than I should have. Now looking back, it's like, why didn't I just take my colon out from the beginning because of the life I'm living now? But that was definitely a whirlwind. I think I'm luckier than most because it wasn't forced upon me. I know that there are many people that get diagnosed with IBD and it's pretty much immediate. This is the life that you're going to be living. Others that don't even realize it until they wake up from surgery. So at least in my instance, it was a decision that I got to make. And the way that I kind of look at it is, well, I didn't succumb to the disease. I took control of the disease by making these decisions for myself. Obviously with the advice of doctors who were always very much on my side. Like, we understand the quality of life you want to live. We understand you're an athlete. We understand that having this appliance does make it more difficult. So we'll fight for you to not have one, but we agree that you're making these good decisions.
Right, right. Now let's talk about that for a minute, because you just said, knowing that you're an athlete, what were you going through? What were you going through in those moments of, what, I am an athlete, like, is this going to get in my way? Like, what were some of the things that you were thinking about during that?
Yeah. Sorry, my dog's barking. So I actually, to backtrack, I started figure skating when I was 6 years old. So it like competitions, collegiate competitions, a national collegiate medal. I mean, just really, really intense athlete. Lots of flares kept me off the ice, and one actually led to a phone call from Michelle Kwan, and we can get into that later because that's a really long story too. Very exciting stuff. But I turned pro in 2017. When you turn pro, that means you're a show skater. So think like Holiday on Ice, Disney on Ice, cruise ships. I skated for Busch Gardens in Tampa Bay for about 16 months, 2 Christmas on Ice contracts, and then our pop show called Turn It Up. I did a full contract of that and a little bit of another one. So that was prior to surgery, since the first surgery was in 2020. But I knew that eventually I would want to go back into shows at some point, whether it be like a really small contract, just so I could work my full-time job at the same time. So I was like, if that's in my future, I don't know if I can get hired with an appliance like this. I had no idea how directors would respond, which I did have one negative response once, but I can't do anything about it because if you get blacklisted from one company, you're blacklisted from them all. So I kind of had to stay silent and deal with it. But so yeah, so my GI in Tampa, she's phenomenal. She's a Crohn specialist. She was like, I will never stop fighting for you. I will never stop trying to find medication that works. She actually put me on double biologics twice, because she knew that was something that I wanted to avoid because of this,
Right.
the sitting. But then I was invited to join this Facebook group called Ostomy Lifestyle Athletes, Lifestyle Ostomy Athletes. I can't remember. I think it's Ostomy Lifestyle Athletes. And just seeing all these runners and swimmers and triathletes and kickboxers. There was a Harvard rugby player that I saw. I was like, this stops nothing. This would absolutely affect nothing. The only thing it would affect would maybe be costumes. But then again, as women, I know that like when I wear really tight things, I just put on Spanx to compress everything tighter. So I was like, it'll work.
We can do that. We can do that.
Old costumes, some old leotards. And I was like, after my surgery, I was like, you can't see anything. I was like, this is fine. So yeah, a lot of it was kind of holding back because I wasn't really sure how it would work. And I remember after my first surgery, when I went for my checkup, I was showing my doctor like different skating positions. I was like, can I do this? Can I do this? He's like, you can do anything. And I was like, oh, okay, well, great. And I have to say, when I'm on the ice, it's like my ostomy doesn't even exist. It's not there. I'm fully put together in my head. So it is like a very, really, it's always been an escape for me, but especially with the bag, it definitely does not exist when I'm out there, whether I see it in videos or not. To me, because I'm able to do everything that I could do prior, it's not there.
So you get in your zone. You just go out there on the ice, and you're in your ice skating zone that you've known since you were 6 years old. So it's just natural, right? So it's just, here I am, I'm performing. My body's free to do things. I mean, it must be freeing to know that, you haven't had a flare, which is right. So, but hold on. So back up, because you had said in the story that a flare brought on a conversation with Michelle Kwan.
Yeah. So a year after I was diagnosed, it was my first time falling out of remission. And when we started having like discussions of going on a biologic, which my mom actually let at 15 be my own decision, because she was like, I really don't want this, but you're the one suffering. Biologics were still new in 2009, essentially. I mean, I know like Remicade had been on the market for 10 years, but that's still new for a drug like that. So it was still scary at the time. And she was like, this is your decision. And I was like, please put me, like, I was like, I can't feel like this anymore. But that entire summer, I was in and out of the hospital. I think it totaled 31 days when all said and done. I like started my junior year of high school a week late because of it, but I still tried to skate in between each hospitalization. And then even with no training, decided to compete in regionals that year, which was horrible, but I still got out on the ice. But I remember I came off one of my training sessions early, just obviously because I was exhausted. My phone started ringing. I was like, who is this number? And I was like, hello? She's like, hi, it's Jacqueline. I'm like, who's calling me? And she's like, this is Michelle Kwan. And I just was like, what? And so she was just kind of telling me that she had been dealing with a lot of injuries throughout her skating career, and she was always able to come back, and just assured me that I'd be able to come back from, recovering from my illness, of course, whenever that ended up happening. So yeah, it's definitely a really exciting phone call that I had to speak with Michelle Kwan.
See, and that must have been so amazing, like just so amazing for you, right? You were young. I mean, she's an inspiration. And for her to say, you can come back, like I've come back from injuries, like you can come back through what you're going through. So So how much you've skated, so you've been skating since your surgeries, you're still working, you're still active.
After my first surgery, I was actually back on the ice within 3 weeks after the first.
All right. We're supposed to heal ourselves for like 6 before we start to work out and stuff. You know that, right?
Good. Don't jump yet, but if you feel good, like you can just skate around. Did I jump on the 4th week? Yeah, but I felt fine.
Okay, we won't tell the doctors that. So no, her doctors, I hope you're not listening to this. Like she did not.
No, my surgeon knows. My surgeon is fully aware. After my colectomy, I ran a half marathon 8 weeks after with no training and got approved for that too. But
okay, so well, your body's in great shape, right? So and you're accustomed to working out, like you're accustomed to being a physical athlete, right? So you need this for the sense of being.
Because I've just been nonstop athlete since 6. So they're just like, your core is just stronger anyway. So, I mean, even after this surgery, I jumped 4 weeks later, and I did get cut open for this one. Like majority of it was laparoscopic, but where they took the colon out, they had to cut open. So I'd never been cut open like that before, and I still jumped 4 weeks later.
Well, you're young. Your body can cover it. Guys, if you're listening to this, it's not recommended. Not recommended. However, she's been an athlete all her life, so her body's used to a lot more things than we are. Well, you know what's funny is, so I flew 8 days after mine. 8 days after mine, I was working with with Tyra Banks in her cosmetics line at the time, and she was having an event in California. So I was like, I can't miss this event. So I have my surgery. So they removed the cancer. I'm now, I'm sewed up, my bottom sewed up. I've got stitches in the front of me, stitches in the back of me, right? So I have a body box, the whole thing. Like, I woke up from surgery, like, done. Like, sorry, Leanne, cancer, and you had no choice. We had no choice. So Barbie butt happened, the whole thing. Saturday, I turn around and I'm on a plane. So I have my surgery on a Friday. 8 days later, I'm on a plane flying across the country so that I can go to this meeting with her. And my surgeon was like, you can't do this. And my oncologist goes, please let her do this. Like, her mind is set. This is good for her. It will help her recovery. And he's like, well, I don't want you being like crazy. So I'm like, I'm sitting on my side. My husband's helping me. I had set up a separate chair. Yeah. Like, I was like all comfy in my chair. Oh yeah. It was crazy. People still think I'm nuts. So guys, listen, don't do what we do, but
But I think that's the power of what we've been through. Like, just dealing with it on a day-to-day basis is such a battle that we definitely push ourselves beyond some boundaries for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah,
it's just part of the game.
And I think too, when you wake up out of the surgery and you're sitting here thinking, and you're like, you know what, I've just gotten a second chance at life. Like, this is good. Like, this is not a bad thing. Like, this is my second chance. I'm going to take it and run with it. We need to allow our bodies to heal. However, I think we just want to go run and spread like love and just live and do all our things.
You feel so good. You're like, all right, let's go. Let's get it started.
Let's just do this. Let's go do it. Yeah, no, it's absolutely fantastic. So, all right. So this is just such an amazing story. So talk to us, what other things have you been up to, and what's on the horizon for you now?
Yeah, I like how earlier you brought up the word freedom. Freedom is definitely my word for the year. Because last year, 22, was very, very rough with my ostomy. I was having major skin issues. I was doing double bag changes every single day. I was diagnosed with pyoderma gangrenosum, which I'm not pronouncing correctly, the second word, but we think it was maybe an ulcer next to my stoma, and that was causing leakage issues. I ended up in the hospital with COVID because of how it affected my Crohn's. Like, last year was just horrible. I was feeling horrible pain with my colon, even though it was unattached. I got a stem cell infusion in September in the Cayman Islands. It was 300 million mesenchymal stem cells, because it was like, let's just try one last thing, see if it can save my colon. Obviously, it was just too far gone. So in November, I moved from Tampa to Fort Lauderdale, and that move brought on a lot of stress, and that just took me down. So the week leading up to, well, I'll backtrack. December, I made the very hard decision to remove my colon. I was like, I'm done. This isn't working anymore. We tried literally everything. I mean, I guess other than a fecal transplant, but that's mostly for C. diff, so I wasn't going to try that. But I was like, we've tried everything. No stones have been left unturned. And so I said, I can't live like this anymore. So I made the decision to have my colon taken out January 13th. But the week leading up to New Year's, I declined. I was already in horrible, like, screaming pain, but I declined so much so that on January 1st at 6 a.m., I called my mom and I said, you need to bring me to the ER. I can't do this. My doctor fit me in at a 9 p.m. surgery on January 3rd after 16 hours of surgery, after just arriving back from vacation and leaving the next morning for vacation. He was like, let's do this.
Wow.
And the freedom that this surgery has given me, I really can't even put into words, because not only health-wise, like, even just like my blood numbers are the healthiest I think I've been since before being diagnosed. And that was just from having the colon out. Before going back on medication, like, everything was just perfect. I'm like, I can make plans with friends and know that I'm going to feel good and not have to cancel or kind of be like, oh, well, we'll see how I feel. I did the half marathon 8 weeks after the surgery, which I had already signed up for, so I wasn't going to get the money back. And it was at Disney World. My mom was doing it with me. So I was like, I'll fast walk this if I have to. I'm not losing my money. I was able to do that. I was able to go to my friend's bachelorette party. And just really just live my life not for the first time, because obviously whenever I've been in remission, I've been able to live. And obviously when I was at Busch Gardens, I was able to do the show, even though I did fall out of remission at Busch once and did end up in the hospital. And my cast had to really step up for me, which they were amazing. But to know that, well, not know for sure, obviously Crohn's is everywhere, it could attack somewhere else, but we're hoping that it doesn't. But just to know that I'm going to wake up every morning feeling good and feeling no pain is just like a sense of relief that I haven't had in 15 years. Because flaring, you don't really know when it's going to happen. I'm very in tune with my body, but at least with flares, it's kind of like one day you wake up and here it goes. So knowing that I'm going to wake up every day and feel good. And then, of course, I've been able to consistently skate, whereas last year it was maybe once every few months.
Okay.
It was rough because it is my escape. So not being able to do it often last year was really difficult. And I skate multiple times a week now, which I haven't been able to do in years. And I'm actually a better skater now than I was right before my first surgery.
So what do you equate that to?
Being healthy. Because I can supplement also in the gym. Like I can work out every day if I want to because I feel good. So being able to supplement in the gym as well and translate that strength back into the ice too. And then the consistency of both. Because being healthy allows me to have that consistency.
Right.
And then not feeling weak because I'm anemic or I'm actually absorbing nutrients now. So I'm not out of vital nutrients for the strenuous activity that is figure skating. So I really just equate it to being healthy, and I feel so much freedom that I know hindsight's 2020, but I'm like, why didn't I just do this in 2020? Just like where I'd be now. But yeah, freedom is definitely the word for the year.
Yeah. Oh, that's an amazing word for the year. That's an amazing word for the year. And your other word is courage.
Yes,
Your
actually,
other word is courage.
On my wrist, it's the Hebrew word for courage. It's ometz because I'm Jewish, so Hebrew is obviously part of that language, even though I can't speak it, or part of that religion, even though I can't speak it or read it anymore. But whenever I was in the hospital throughout my childhood into young adolescence, my mom always said, when on the downside of an advantage, look to your courage. So courage is my word.
I love that.
Dude, even though my mom wanted to rip my head off, I was like, it means
right. Even my mom's 75. My mom has a tattoo now, but I remember like back in the day, I was like, well, I can't tell her I like can't get a tattoo or whatever. But my mom, she's got a tattoo. She's had pink hair, nose ring.
I joke with my mom because she gets the microblading on her eyebrows. I'm like, well, Mom, you have a tattoo. And she was like,
right?
It's not the same. It wears off after 3 years. I'm like, it's the same thing.
Same thing. Yep. It's a tattoo. Oh, I love it. Well, Jacqueline, I have loved you sharing your story. I know it's going to affect so many people who listen to this podcast in such a great positive way.
I really hope so, because I know that I came from a place of, I knew what ostomies were. My dad had one. I kind of knew what to expect. I woke up and I was like, oh, this actually kind of feels like what I thought it would feel like. But that there's a lot of people that are thrown into it without either any knowledge, lots of knowledge, without really any time to prepare. So the message I just really want to get across is that it does not stop you from, and I know you agree, it does not stop you from doing anything you want to. The only thing is, like, you might have to adjust the way you wear clothes. That's it. It affects zero of living your life. Anything you did before, you can do after. Sidetrack. I rode the Tron ride at Disney World recently, and I was really nervous about where it was going to press up against my ostomy.
Oh, yeah.
No issues. So we can also ride Tron without issues. But, as I'm sure you can agree, it is not the end of your life. It's just the beginning of a different life. But one that can be just as, if not more beautiful. So that's really what I would hope to get across.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And that is like the perfect way for us to end this episode, guys. Okay. Again, Jacqueline, thank you so much for being here with us this week. I truly appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us this week. If you enjoyed this podcast, get the behind the scenes at leannehayden.com/ostomy updates. And also, if you found this episode encouraging, please screenshot it and share it on Instagram. And don't forget to tag me and also the person who was on the episode with me. I occasionally will do special gifts for anyone who does do a screenshot and share it on Instagram or in your stories. Also, lastly, please go to Apple or Google, rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast to keep up with them every single week. I enjoy you guys. Thank you so much for being here.